maybe I'm wrong, or maybe we're all wrong. Chapter 27 leaves some things that, to be honest, haven't been fully answered yet. I'm Nim without an E. Let's talk a little about this chapter. So yeah, for at least the next 8 minutes, how do we start with Eida? After reading all your responses, especially since the spoilers came out, I agree with you that this chapter doesn't fully reveal why Sarada and Sumire weren't affected by the omnipotence that changed everyone's memories of Boruto and Kawaki. But even though we know that in this chapter, Eida reveals, or more accurately, assumes that the reason Sumire and Sarada are immune is because of their love for Otsutsuki, is that the real reason? I mean, is there another plot twist that will be explained in more detail later? And honestly, I think we still need some additional evidence, or, as mentioned earlier, if there is supposed to be another plot twist that will unravel this mystery. Is that right? But for some reason, I think this is Akimoto's way of showing appreciation for the Boruto fandom. Because basically, it's very unlikely that an author would only focus on their work without considering some of the responses from their fans. And of course, we can't deny the fact that after Kawaki and Boruto's fates were reversed, the Boruto manga's hype skyrocketed significantly. Because essentially, that moment coincided with the sealing of Uzumaki Naruto. In other words, it sparked a lot of speculation with an increase in the number of fans. And once again, this also sparked one of the speculations and theories about Sarada and Sumire's immunity to Zeno. However, if we can draw a conclusion at this point, Eida seems to have explained it very well. If the reason Sarada and Sumire are not affected by Zeno is because Boruto has stolen their hearts, then all the women who like Boruto and Kawaki out there must also be immune to Zeno Eida. But the fact is, it's not what Eida thinks. And yeah, Eida finally admits that the most plausible possibility is that Eida's deepest wish was granted by Zeno. And honestly, I don't deny this fact. But if you think about it logically and consider it from another perspective, the power of omnipotence is God level, and its effects reach the entire world, even influencing the structure of reality and memory. So it's really strange that two people could escape just because Eida accidentally excluded that based on her deepest desire after Sarada treated Eida so well like a friend. Oh yeah, strange doesn't mean it's not logical or nonsense. But believe it or not, I think one of the characters who will reveal more about this in the end is Kashin Koji, or even Amado. Yeah, you heard right. Maybe after I mention Amado or Kashin Koji, you'll think this is nonsense, right? That's okay. But let me explain first. Why Amado? Well, you know, he's someone who is obsessed with recovery, resurrection, or something else related to human consciousness or even life. He lost his daughter, Akebi, and since then he has been obsessed with the concepts of the soul, consciousness, and artificial bodies. To understand this, he created various cyborgs and clones, but all failed to become true humans. And Akebi did not end up as he had hoped. And after Amado created Eida, he discovered a godlike ability, omnipotence, through Eida, a power that can alter reality, including manipulating memories, identities, and human existence itself. However, if you ask what this has to do with Sarada and Sumire, who are exceptions, this is the real point. You know, Amado had a crazy idea that led to an experiment where the limits of human will, or even that of a god, could be manipulated just for the sake of his daughter. In other words, if everyone could be manipulated or broken, then there would be no exceptions, even for a god. But if there are still two people who can reject that artificial reality, it means that there is still a core of human consciousness that cannot be erased. In other words, also, Sarada and Sumire are proof that humans can reject the will of the gods. And that is the result Amado has been looking for all this time, because once again, you should still remember Amado's principle of trying to break the boundaries that have been desired by humans or even the gods themselves after his daughter truly died from a rare disease. In short, can humans still resist God's will? That's the point. But honestly, I'm sure Akimoto and Kishimoto will explain it much better than this. And not only that, as masters of plot twists, there are some things happening beyond our understanding. Yeah, that's how it is. Second is Kashin Koji, but disclaimer, this is honestly completely crazy. I'm serious, but I hope you consider this. So far, we know that Amado and Koji are already on their respective paths, right? Because after the Kashin Koji versus Ishiki arc, Koji has completely hidden his identity from the ninja world, and even Amado himself is really suspicious and curious about what Kashin Koji is actually planning if he is still alive. And yeah, that suspicion began after Amado found out that Boruto had leaked the secret of Kawaki's power. And in general, it doesn't rule out the fact that Amado originally created Kashin Koji with the goal of working together to destroy Ishiki, who was inside Jigen's body, but now they each have their own goals that are actually difficult to predict. But In essence, Kashin Koji has a different goal. However, at this point, a wild assumption and speculation points to Zeno's power to change the reality of the world. Koji deliberately protected Sarada and Sumire so that the world would still have hope to restore the truth. Doesn't make sense? Let me explain again. We all know that the battle between Ishiki and Kashin Koji took place before the time skip era, right? Specifically, the godlike power we now recognize as the ability to foresee the future emerged near the end of Kashin Koji's life. And logically, we can conclude that there's a significant time gap between the Jippo Awakening arc and the Omnipotence arc that occurred before the time skip. What I mean is, have you ever imagined that after Koji awakened the power of the gods, he saw a scenario where the realities of Kawaki and Boruto's worlds had been swapped by Eida's omnipotence ability? In other words, given the fact that Kashin Koji couldn't stop Kawaki's plan to swap fates with Boruto through Eida, Koji had another alternative scenario that wouldn't affect Sarada and Sumire with that ability. But if you're wondering how and what Koji did, this is what I'm actually thinking about, but at least this method needs to be considered. Before Omnipotence is activated, he could implant some kind of chakra seal or something similar into Sarada and Sumire indirectly. For example, through long-distance chakra resonance, or even through his toad. But again, if you think this is unreasonable, that's fine. However, if you have a more rational and reasonable explanation, I would respect that more. Oh yeah, and if you're wondering why it has to be Sarada and Sumire, the explanation should be very simple. As for Sarada, she has been Boruto's friend since childhood, and we know that she will protect Boruto from any problems he faces. In other words, Koji knows that Sarada will fight alongside Boruto and will not hesitate to risk her life if necessary, right? As for Sumire, this should be even easier. Why? Since Amado joined Konoha, Sumire has been his right-hand woman. This means that Sumire also plays an important role in knowing Amado's plans and secrets that we haven't even thought of or revealed yet. In other words, both Sarada and Sumire have such significant roles and must be in the real world. Yeah. You know what I mean, right? And as a final conclusion, at this point, I'm not denying or thinking that Eida's reasoning is unreasonable. Not at all. But I'm more inclined to think further, as you guys think, that the reason Sarada and Sumire are not affected by omnipotence is not as simple as Eida says, that it's just a coincidence of her deepest desire. Because in my opinion, Eida is not so sure, but she also seems to think that there could be other more reasonable reasons, right? And regarding Amado or Kashin Koji having an important role, or more precisely, a plot twist as to why Sarada and Sumire are exceptions, for some reason, I'm more convinced that in the end, Kashin Koji will be the one to reveal this mystery and why Sarada and Sumire are exceptions to omnipotence. Because one thing I remember is that after Jippo's power awakened, he was determined not to die at that moment. That means he will fight and struggle to protect the world. And all of this started from the omnipotence arc that changed the reality of the world to Kawaki and Boruto, the saviors and hopes of the world. Yeah, that's it. But in the end, this is all just a theory and analysis from a Boruto addict. If there are some analyses that you don't agree with, let's talk about it in the comments. So yeah, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. I'm Nim without the E. See you in the next video. Bye bye, Dada Bio.